Everybody. I am going to go through the Unit 6 review for multiplying fractions. This is one of the things that's the most difficult for doing this distance learning, I understand, is going through word problems, because normally in school we can go through a whole bunch of different types of word problems, the types that you would see, kind of talk through them, and then you could have an opportunity to do them on your own and try to relate them to problems that we've already done. So this is what makes it really hard, is that we don't get that opportunity. I know I had you practice some word problems on IXL, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be the same type of word problem or that you knew how to do it correctly the first time. So I'm making this video so you guys can take a look at the Unit 6 review and the word problems, what they mean, how we're deciding to do some things. That way, when it comes to taking the test on Monday, you will be more comfortable looking at those word problems, trying to figure out what you need to do based on looking at this video, and then going back and looking at some of the videos on just how to do the algorithms or draw the pictures. That was one thing I noticed with this. First question asked you to draw a picture, and a lot of you guys right off the bat didn't draw a picture. You have to draw a picture if it states it on the test. I'm not going to let you know if it tells you to do that or not. But if you don't and it does ask you to do that, then you're going to be losing some points from your test. So make sure you're reading all the directions. Don't just see a problem and do it the way you want to do it. Make sure you're reading the directions. It may guide you in a way that you should be doing the problem. So let's get started and take a look at number one, which I mentioned right in the problem. Says you need to draw a model. So number one says Logan bought 15 balloons. 4/5 of the balloons are purple. How many of the balloons are purple? Draw a model to show how you found your answer. So we talked about this word of, and when we're referring back to something, right? So a fraction of, and they're talking about balloons, which is referring back to something we already have in this problem. It's telling us that we're multiplying, okay? So I'm going to start by just writing out the multiplication problem here. So we have 15, and we're multiplying that by 4/5. Sorry, my computer's moving a little bit on me. And again, it says draw a model. So those of you who just gave this a denominator of 1 and multiplied and simplified, you would not be able to get full credit because it's asking you to draw a model. So make sure, again, that you're following all the directions that come along with the word problems. So hopefully we remember to draw a model. We did things in columns and rows. So hopefully you went back and watched the video where I showed how to go about drawing these problems. Remember, this picture is only going to work when the denominator and the whole number. If the denominator can go evenly into the whole number, then this type of picture will work. So this works, right? 5 goes evenly into 15. So the picture will work nice and easily for us here. So for us, we're starting our picture. Let me just erase this. We're starting our picture by drawing one row of the denominator. Remember, rows are from left to right. Columns are up and down. So one row of x's for the denominator. So that means I'm making 5 x's here. Okay, there's my 5 x's. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to fill in underneath each row until I have 15 total x's. So I want to get the total number that I have for my whole number here. That way I'm looking at all 15. And remember, we're making an array, so they have to be even, right? So we're going to go ahead. I already have 5. So here's 6, here's 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So now I have all 15 of my whole number represented, and I have it in an array, right? So I have 5 across the top. I have 3 down the side or in the column. I'm sorry, so 5 in a row, 3 in a column. And then remember, all we're going to do now is look at our numerator and say, all right, I have to circle 4 rows, and rows go up and down, right? My numerator is telling me how many rows I need. So there's 3, and then there's 4. So then we're looking at our answer now. So all of the x's that are circled, that's our answer to this question. So if we count them all up, we have 12. So our answer for this is there are 12 purple balloons. Okay. So again, this only works because the denominator of 5 goes evenly into that whole number of 15. Okay. Let's move on to number 2. Number 2 is a 2-part question. I'm going to go back and forth between the question and the next slide because the next slide's empty for me to do all the work. Okay, and this one may be a little bit confusing because there were 3 fractions in here, but you really had to take your time and read through it so you could figure out what was being asked of you here. So number 2 says, in a 5th grade class, 4/5 of the girls have brown hair. of the brown-haired girl. So now we're talking about this 4/5 up there, right? I can't draw on the screen, but we're talking back to that 4/5 fractions, right? Brown-haired girls, of the brown-haired girls. So we're looking back, they're saying 4/5 of that class. So that's what we're talking about. 3/4 of them, again, 3/4 of the 4/5 have long hair. Of the girls with long brown hair, so after we do this first part of our problem, 1/3 of them have green eyes. So the first part is asking what fraction of the girls in the class have long brown hair. So we have to go back and we know that 4/5, I don't know why that did that. Let me back out. There we go. 4/5 of the girls have brown hair. So that's our first fraction. And of those girls, 3/4 of them have long hair. So we're multiplying for part A, 3/4 times 4/5. So I'm going to do that on this next slide here. So this is just part A that we're looking at. So we have 4/5 of the class have brown hair. 3/4 of the girls. So if we were to say there are 5 girls in class, 4 out of 5 of them have brown hair. And we have a fractional part of that, which is 3/4 of them that have long hair. So we need to multiply 4/5 times 3/4 to figure out how many girls have long brown hair in the class, or what fraction, I should say, have long brown hair in the class. So I'm going to do my cross canceling here. So I can divide these both by 4. That's a division sign. Divide by 4. And I can't do anything to the other ones, right? 5 and 3, the greatest common factor is 1, so I can't do anything to them. So I'm going to rewrite this as 1/5 times 3/1, and then we should just multiply straight across. So for part A, we know that 3/5 of the girls in the class have long brown hair. Okay, so we need that for part A. This is A here, part A. The answer is 3/5 of the girls have long brown hair. Let's go back and take a look at the question for part B. What fraction of the girls in class have long brown hair and green eyes? So when we go back and look at the end part of that question, it talks about this group that is girls that have long brown hair, which is what we just came up with as an answer, right? We had 3/5. That's the fractional piece of the class that have long brown hair. Saying out of those girls, 1/3 of them have green eyes. So for us to figure out the girls in the class that have long brown hair and green eyes, we have to multiply the fraction of girls that have long brown hair by the fraction of them that have green eyes. So we have our answer from before as 3/5, and we're going to be multiplying 3/5 times 1/3. Oh, I went the wrong way, sorry. So I'm going to just put a line here so we know that we're looking at, that was part A. Now this side we're looking at part B, okay? So again, we're taking our answer from part A, which is 3/5, and we need to multiply that by how many, or what fractional piece, of these girls with long brown hair have green eyes. And they're telling us the fractional piece is 1/3 of them. Okay, so again, we're multiplying. 1/3 of that fractional piece have green eyes. And I use green for green eyes. So let's cross cancel here, or cross simplify. I know I can divide 3 and 3 by each other, right? And I can't do anything with 5 and 1. Again, the greatest common factor is 1 there. So when I rewrite this problem here, I have 1/5 times 1/1. And then again, multiply numerators, multiply denominators. My answer is, and let's do it in green because it's a fractional piece of girls who have long brown hair with green eyes. 1/5 of those long brown haired girls have green eyes. Okay. So when we're looking at these multi-step problems, most of the time, not every single time, but most of the time, part A's answer is what you have to use for part B. Okay. So again, when you find your answer for part A, most of the time you are going to have to use that answer from part A to help you get the answer to part B. All right. When we type in our answer, right, you could type in, first I had to find out the fractional piece of the girls. I'll type it out for you. First, I had to find out, oops, spell first wrong. That's not it, not Frost. First, I had to find out the fractional part of the girls that have long brown hair by multiplying, and we're multiplying 4/5 and 3/4. That answer, or that is what I used to then find the fractional part of the class that, or the fractional part of the girls with brown hair who have brown eyes. To do that, I needed to multiply. It was 3/5, because that was our answer to the first one, and 1/3, because that's the fractional piece of the girls with brown hair, or long brown hair, I'm sorry, who have green eyes. So we came up with an answer of 1/5 of the girls in class have long brown hair and green eyes. So that's our explanation, right? We explained how we found the first part for part A, how we used that answer to go ahead and figure out part B, and then we told us our answer for part B as well. So there's our explanation in there for you. All right, let's move on to number 3. Oh, that's number 2 still. Number 3. Ruby conducted a survey and found that 5/6 of her classmates have a pet, and 2/3 of those pets are dogs. What fraction of her classmates has dogs? So again, we're looking at first a fraction, right? Like a group, not the whole group, but a piece of their class, right, that have a pet. And we're looking for what fractional piece of that group, or of their class, I'm sorry, have dogs. So to do that, we have to start with the first fractional piece. They're telling us that 5/6 of them have pets, right? So not everybody has a pet. 5/6 of that class have pets. And then out of the 5/6 group of people, 2/3 of them, their pets are dogs. So to go ahead and figure out how many classmates have, not how many, but what fractional piece of the class have dogs, we have to multiply the number of classmates that have pets, and then multiply it by the number of those who have dogs, and that was 2/3 of them. So hopefully this one wasn't too difficult for us. Again, I like to do my cross canceling or cross simplifying because the numbers are smaller, right? I'm looking here, 5 and 3, I can't do anything with that, but 2 and 6 I can divide them both by 2. And then rewrite my problem, 5 over 3 times 1/3. And then, oops, sorry, just looking at my notes. Do I have the right one in here? Yeah, I do. Okay. Oh, I made, yep, 2. Okay. So then I'm going to go ahead and multiply numerators, multiply denominators to get my answer, right? We have 5/9 is that fractional piece of the class that have dogs. All right, on to number 4. Number 4 was a practice for us with our mixed numbers. So we're looking at Becky lives 5 and 5/8 miles from school. Steve lives 1 and 5/9 times as far from school as Becky. How far does Steve live from school? They're telling us right in this problem what we're doing, right? 1 and 5/9 times is telling us to multiply that original distance, which was 5 and 5/8, by 1 and 5/9, right? So let's write that in. We have 5 and 5/8. And we are going to be multiplying that by 1 and 5/9. And that's going to tell us how far Steve lives from school. So remember, we first have to take all of these mixed numbers and turn them into improper fractions before we can go ahead and multiply them, right? That's the way we've been doing it. So I'm taking denominator and multiplying it by the whole number. So 5 times 8 is 40. And then I'm adding that with the numerator. 40 plus 5 is 45. That's my numerator here. My denominator will not change. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the second one. 9 times 1 is 9 plus 5. I'll have 9 on the bottom and I'll have 14 on the top. And now again, here's really where cross-canceling or cross-simplifying helps you out a lot, because right now, if I were to multiply these and then try to simplify them, I may come out with some really large numbers, where if I cross-simplify them first, I'm going to work with smaller numbers, right? So I'm looking at both of these, right? I'm going to start by looking at 45 and 9. And I know my 9 times tables pretty well, so I know that 9 can go into 45. So that means I can divide them both by 9 here. So divide by 9, divide by 9. And then I'm going to look at the other ones, right? I'm looking at 8 and 14. And I say, okay, well, I know I can at least do 2, right? Because 8 is even and 14 is even as well. So I'm going to go ahead and use 2 for both of these. And I'm going to rewrite this problem just so that it's nice and neat. Okay, so when I do the first one, I have 45 divided by 9. Let me write that in a different color. I'm going to do it over here. Is 5. And then 8 divided by 2 is 4. And we are still multiplying. And then 14 divided by 2 is 7. And 9 divided by 9 is 1. So now we have a much easier problem that we're looking at to go ahead and figure out our answer, right? We're going to multiply our numerators, multiply our denominators, which again, we're working with smaller numbers, so that makes our life a bit easier here, okay? Last thing we have to do, because our fraction's improper, right? Our numerator is larger than our denominator. We're going to be dividing the denominator into the numerator. And it's going to become a mixed number again, right? We multiplied 2 mixed numbers, and now our answer is going to become a mixed number. So I'm going to go ahead and divide here. I'm running out of room. 4 goes into 35. 4 goes into 35 8 times, and that's 32. And we get 3 left over, so I have 8, remainder 3. I'm going to write my answer in the top corner in, let's choose a better color. The one we haven't used, in brown, I guess. Let's use brown. So remember now, this is a mixed number that we're looking at. So over here to the left of our remainder, that's our whole number. So we have 8. And then our remainder here is our numerator. And our divisor, that's our denominator. And remember, we're talking about a word problem here. We're seeing how far away, and we can label that. Oh, I made a mistake here. Sorry, I put the wrong number here. My divisor is 4, not 3. So we have 8 and 3/4, and that's miles, right? We're 8 and 3/4 miles away from school. That's how far he lives. Now, remember, these are a lot of work, right? We're doing converting these mixed numbers to improper fractions, which is a 4th grade skill that we practiced earlier. Once we do that, then we looked at cross-canceling or cross-simplifying. Then we did our multiplying fractions, and then we had to go ahead and convert back from an improper fraction to a mixed number, which the first and the last skill that we just did are 4th grade refreshers. So if you're not feeling comfortable doing those things, you really need to go back on the Google Classroom and look at the refreshers or 4th grade refreshers, right? They're in there. There's examples of how to do them. There's a bunch of examples of them. Please, 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 if you're not comfortable, go back and watch them. All right, let's take a look at our last one for the study guide today. This one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the problem and we'll look at it together. I'm going to go back actually right now. Wait, is there another slide? Oh, good. There's a blank slide. Sorry, I didn't know it was there. So we'll go and put the answers on that blank slide and do all the work in there. So let's talk through the problem first. It says Robbie is using the recipe below to make chicken noodle soup. He plans to make 6 batches of soup. He has 2/3 teaspoon of black pepper. Okay, so they're just giving us some information here, right? There's no question in the beginning, but really important piece of information, especially when we're talking about recipes. A recipe makes 1 batch. So if we look at this chicken noodle soup recipe, if he were to make just 1 batch of chicken noodle soup, That's the ingredients and the amount of each ingredient that he needs. So he needs 4 cups of chicken broth, 1 medium carrot, 1 celery stalk, a half cup uncooked egg noodles, 1/8 teaspoon of ground black pepper, and then 1 cup of shredded cooked chicken. So that's 1 batch. We know from this problem he wants to make 6. So right away we should be thinking we're going to be multiplying by 6 at some point, because for him to go ahead and make 6 batches, that's what he has to do. Or he's going to add each ingredient 6 times by itself, right? He could do 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 and figure out the amount of chicken broth he needs. Or he could just multiply by 6. And for each ingredient, he could do the same thing. So we have to be thinking, okay, he wants 6 batches. That means he's going to be multiplying something by 6 at some point, if not everything by 6, okay? The last part is just telling us information on what he has. So like that's him opening up his cabinet, right? If you're in your kitchen and you open the cabinet and you're like, oh, how much black pepper do I have? This is telling us that in his cabinet, he has 2/3 teaspoons of black pepper. That's what he has to use, okay? So let's take a look at the 2 questions that go along with this. So it says, how much black pepper will Robbie need for 6 batches of soup? Now, here's the confusing part with this. We're looking at black pepper, and there's 2 numbers that go along with it, right? One is 2/3, which is up at the top. It says he has 2/3 teaspoons of black pepper. The other one, if we look at the recipe, says 1/8 teaspoon ground black pepper. We have to figure out which one of these numbers we have to multiply by 6. Now remember, the one in the first part of the problem, he has 2/3 teaspoon of black pepper. That's him opening his cabinet and saying, oh, look, here's how much pepper I have to make this chicken soup. In the box with the recipe is how much soup he needs, how much black pepper he needs for 1 batch. So we're going to use that number. We're going to use how much he needs, right? Because that's what it's asking us. How much will he need for 6 batches of soup? It doesn't ask us how much does he have. So we have to go ahead and take the 6 batches of soup, so 6, and we're going to multiply it by how much pepper is needed for each batch, which is 1/8 teaspoon. So 6 batches, so we're multiplying it by how much pepper in 1 batch is 1/8. This should be fairly simple for us, right? If you want, you could draw a picture. If you don't want to draw a picture, which I'm not going to do, you don't have to. We're going to cross simplify here. Okay, so I know that they're both even numbers. That's why I chose 2. It's actually their greatest common factor as well as 2. So that means it's going to be the smallest it can be. Excuse me. So when I rewrite my problem, my 4 didn't come all the way through. I can now multiply easily, right? 3 times 1 is 3, 4 times 1 is 4. So for the first part of the question, for part A, how much black pepper will Robbie need for 6 batches of soup? He needs 3/4 teaspoons. That's part A, okay? Just like we said before, I'm actually going to draw a line here. Hopefully there's enough room for me to do part B around this. Circle our answer for part A. That's part A. Now let's look at part B, and remember, we're most likely going to be using the number, or at least looking at this number, to answer part B, right? That's why they are 2-part questions. They go together with each other. So it says, does Robbie have enough black pepper for 6 batches of soup? Prove your answer. This is the part that's difficult, okay? Because we have 2 answers here, right? Like, does he have enough? It's yes or no. So some of you guys are just going to guess yes or no, but really it's why. Like, how do you know that he has enough, or how do you know he doesn't have enough? So that's what we're going to look at right now. So we know he has, right up here, the last sentence of the problem, or the information they're giving us, he has 2/3 teaspoon of black pepper. We know that he needs 3/4, okay? So he has, I'm going to just put an H up here, he has 2/3 teaspoons. He needs, let's do it in a different color, he needs, that's an N for needs, 3/4 teaspoons. So really, this is what we're asking here is what he needs greater than, less than, or equal to what he has? And if what he needs is bigger or larger than what he has, he does not have enough pepper to make 6 batches of this recipe. Okay, so this again is a 4th grade skill. We're looking at comparing 2 fractions here. I'm just going to erase a little bit of part A just so that we can use down here for some room, because if we can't look at these and figure them out, which these two are not too easy to look at and figure out because they're actually pretty close to each other, we're going to do some math to prove it, and especially because the question tells us we have to prove it. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to get a common denominator and write equivalent fractions. So we're going back to when we were adding and subtracting fractions. We had to have a denominator that is the same. When we compare fractions, we have to have a denominator that's the same. Otherwise, it's difficult to compare them to see which one's larger or smaller. So we have to remember that we're looking for a common denominator here. And a lot of us, when we were doing adding and subtracting fractions when we were back in school, we're pretty good at looking at the 2 denominators if they were smaller, just like this one is, right, and figuring out what's the denominator we're using. So I'm going to tell you the denominator we should use is 12, right? And I'll show you how I get there just as a refresher to you. So remember we said, oh, we're going to take each denominator and skip count by that denominator or find the multiples of it. And we're looking for the smallest multiple they both have. So I'm going to skip count by 4s. 4, my 4s don't give me a line. 8, 12, I'm just going to skip count a little bit more. 16, and then I'm going to do the same thing for 3s. So 3, 6, 9, 12. So I stopped because here is the first one that they both have in common is 12. And that's what we're using for our denominator. Okay, so underneath each one, I'm going to go ahead and write a fraction and have a denominator of 12. So this one I'll put under here, and this one we'll put over here. Now remember, we're looking at our needs column right now, and we're going to say, how did we get from 4 to 12? Well, with multiplying, 4 times 3 gets to 12, and when we make equivalent fractions, we have to do the same thing that we do to the denominator to the numerator, right? So that means I have to multiply that numerator by 3 as well. So the equivalent fraction is 9/12. Now let's do the same thing for what he has. We're going to say to multiply from 3 to get to 12, we had to do multiply by 4. I have to do the same thing to the numerator to make it an equivalent fraction, to make them equal. And then I'm going to go ahead and get my new numerator. So 2 times 4 is 8. Now, we're looking at he needs 9/12. He has 8/12. Does he have enough to make the 6 batches? And the answer is he does not, right? 8/12 is smaller than 9/12. So he is very, very close to having enough, but he does not have enough black pepper to make this recipe 6 times or 6 batches of this recipe. So let's go back and explain our answer in here, okay? Because we have to prove our answer for this. And we did that. Our math here is really what we're going to be writing, right? So we're going to write our part A part, and then we're going to go ahead and just say how we compared them for part B, okay? So we have to write in our answer here that he needs, we're answering part A right now, he needs, let me look back here, what was it? 3/4 teaspoons of black pepper to make 6 batches. 6. We found this by multiplying the amount of pepper. Oh boy, I can't type today. In one batch by 6. And I'm just going to put here in parentheses so we know that in one batch it was 1/8 teaspoon of pepper that we multiplied by 6. So that's part A. right? Just said how we did that, which again was pretty straightforward, right? And now we're going to do part B. So it's telling us, does he have enough pepper, yes or no? We said no. So he doesn't have enough pepper because he needs 3/4 teaspoons for 6 batches. He has 2/3 teaspoons of black pepper. We compared them by making equivalent fractions with common denominators. Oh, I didn't spell that right. Equivalent fractions with common denominators. The denominator we used was 12. That made the amount he needed. It was 9/12, and the amount he had was 8/12. Again, typos. So again, there's a lot in here in explaining it, and we could explain a little bit further, but I think this explains it pretty well, just saying that we made equivalent fractions and had the same common denominator, and then it was easy enough to look at them and say, okay, well, he needs 9/12 and he only has 8/12. Really explains to us why he does not have enough. He comes up really short. Like I said, 2/3 and 3/4 are really, really close to each other. Look at that. We're looking at 12ths here, and there's only 1/12 difference between them. Okay, so please do me a favor today, tomorrow, over the weekend. Look through this video. Watch some of the videos on multiplying fractions, multiplying mixed numbers. Go back if you need to. Look at some of those fraction refreshers from 4th grade. Like, I know a lot of us still struggle with simplifying. A lot of us struggle with improper to mixed numbers or mixed numbers to improper fractions. So please, please, please go back and look at those videos. You can continuously watch them over and over again. I would take out a piece of paper and do it step by step with the video, just to make sure you're understanding how everything's working. Monday, we're going to take the test on Monday. I'm going to give you 2 days. So you'll have Monday and Tuesday to complete the test. If you are going to take more than 1 day, so if you open it on Monday and you're going to go ahead and try to finish it on Tuesday, do not close out of the form. It will not save. So just leave it up on your computer if you're able to do that, and just come back to it the next time, or tomorrow, the next day, I should say. Okay. But please don't close out of it. Please don't submit it and then ask me to send it back to you, because it doesn't work really well when you do that. It takes a while for me to get things back to you. So please don't submit it unless it's completely finished and you're okay with it. All right, guys. So take the weekend tomorrow, or today, I'm sorry, because I'm doing this on Thursday. Today's Friday. So take today and the weekend to go ahead and study. If you have any questions, please try to direct those questions to me on Friday. I'm not really around in my looking in my classroom much over the weekend. All right, weekend, guys.